Sometimes flipping is a good way to get a bigger deposit and that sort of thing, especially in the trades, because you've got that skill set too, right? So trading a property or two, but obviously over the long term, making sure you're retaining for that capital gain and that growth over the long term. Welcome to the couch today, Michaela, Harriet and Cam for this episode of the Relatable Property Investor. I'm going to preempt this one, which is a little bit different from the other ones that we'll be doing, and to talk about the fact that you guys obviously are all working here at Duval, which is quite special. So at Duval, we have a large percentage of our staff who actually already invest in our properties. And the reason that I've got these guys here today is to engage with them about their plans in terms of getting into their property journey. But I want to start with you guys, as we always do on the show, talking about your background, what you learnt about property, investment, money, all of that sort of thing growing up, the examples that your parents set for you, anything that you think might be relative to sort of, your property journey or your journey in terms of what you understood before you came to Duval and met us. So maybe we'll start with you, Michaela.
Yes, so my family background, we come from a dairy background, dairy farming, sorry. So they always worked really hard and instilled values that if you work hard, you can succeed, and when you work hard, you kind of get what you work for. And with our family, it's always been generations helping you, whether it's my grandparents helping my parents start off with their farming, and then my parents helping me along my journey.
Yeah, cool. And did they invest in property?
They invested in the business, so whether purchasing property for the benefit of the farm rather than investing in actual multiple units.
I'm from England. I've been here for almost 4 years. My parents both have their own businesses. They've always owned their own homes. I didn't really get taught a lot about investing or money. Didn't really ever think about it until moving here and being involved in Duval. So now I'm really interested in purchasing, really trying hard to get residency, so that's a possibility for me.
My parents have always invested in funds, so that was always very different. They were always in the share market and honestly less in property, and that's where they've always put their life savings, has been into different funds. So for me, originally that was what I thought I would do. I knew I had more knowledge about investment funding and all that kind of stuff, rather than actually investing in property. So, yeah.
And you do dabble a little bit in that, don't you? There.
I still have my money in funds. Yeah.
Which I actually think's an interesting thing to note, because obviously mostly we advise on property, right? We don't advise on anything else. But what I do think is interesting is that you don't have your money just sitting in a bank account waiting for the day that you buy property, and that you've got a strategy to make sure that money is working for you before the end game, or going and investing in a property and not just having it sitting there in the bank account doing nothing. Tell us about your plans and what you're wanting to achieve with Duval, and then I want to talk to you a little bit about how you're planning to get there. So what are your plans, Michaela?
So in the next year or so, I'm looking at purchasing my first investment with Duval. I'll be kind of looking at going down the avenue of doing it myself with a little bit of help from family, just with the initial deposit. Yeah.
Cool. And what about you, Harriet?
So of course I've got to work on my residency to be able to do that, so that gives me time to save. So Cam and I are wanting to invest together.
Because I forget to mention he's got a couple.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, so we're wanting to invest together. So yeah, I've got a couple of years to save up, and Ben's been really helpful teaching me kind of where to put my money, how it all works, and yeah, so that's hopefully what we'll do.
Cool. I actually have a pretty full KiwiSaver fund, so I have no real good excuse to not own a property. And all my savings and different funds as well, I actually do have the money to own a property, and maybe it's just pure laziness that I don't.
Procrastination. Maybe we'll get something out of this interview that we can today. So tell us, I guess, Michaela, obviously you're talking about to get into your own property. There's the potential that you're going to use family support. What else are you doing to get yourself into a position to buy a home?
So with that there, I've actually upped my KiwiSaver from the 6% to the 10% because that's money that you can't touch at all and it's just ticking away. So when I do pay my deposit, I'm hoping to use my own savings and then use my KiwiSaver down the track so it can build up and use as much money there as I can.
And you'll qualify as well for the Home Start grant, won't you?
Yes,
So you've got that little bit of extra sitting there too.
Yes, and it's just being really regimented with your savings and just knowing that if you don't touch it, you'll receive something at the end of it and you're working hard for your goal.
And that's a good point you mentioned about using your KiwiSaver not just for the deposit but for the settlement. People have this perception that use your KiwiSaver just for the deposit, but if you're buying something off plan, for example, you can do exactly that. If you have the deposit, bit of cash, great, you can secure it, and then if it's 18 months away or 12 months or whatever it is for the settlement, that's when you can actually use your KiwiSaver to still go towards part of that deposit. And it's quite a smart way because exactly what, like you said, you can't touch it. So it's just forcing you to save over that time, which is really...
So there's multiple ways to apply your KiwiSaver.
Totally. Yeah.
It's not just as a deposit or as settlement, you can go either way.
Yep.
Yeah, that's cool. And what about you, Harry?
I've recently also put some money in funds, just because obviously it doesn't really do much sitting in the bank, so just trying to put away as much as I can.
And obviously you don't get the benefit of the KiwiSaver, so
No.
you've got to find those other strategies too.
Yeah, and of course I'm kind of leaning on Cam a little bit, but yeah, I'll contribute as much as I can. I've just got to put away everything I can, save as much as I can of all my paychecks and stuff like that.
And so Cam, tell us, what's your excuse for not having? Well, yeah. What exactly are you doing?
It's even worse that you've been in the trade, so you've been around property for a while before this. That's even worse.
Yeah, but tell us a bit about that, because obviously now you're in our land acquisitions team, but before that you're in the trades.
Yeah, I was an electrician by trade, and I guess most people in the trade, most tradies, you know, you buy a house, just a small one on your own section, and then you do it up and you on sell it and you make a profit. Naturally, that was kind of how I leaned towards what I would do with property eventually when I bought one, and that was definitely where I was stuck.
And how has your view on that changed since working with Duval?
I don't think I understood what else was available. I don't think I understood what more you can do with a different type of housing. I didn't realise that townhousing and apartments is actually the future of, you know, of a big cities kind of, you know, the density has to go up. These are the solutions, and the first rung on the property ladder actually isn't a standalone home on its own section.
It's important to note though, and Kenyon talks about this too, and I'm sure you guys have heard it, that, you know, buying houses and flipping and renovating, we're not saying that's a bad thing to do, and for a lot of people that is the easiest and best way to get started, and for people that are only able to earn a certain amount, then that is a very viable and proven way to get ahead. But it gets to a point with your investment strategy and with your time in life where, and we talk about this a lot, where you value your time more than your money, and you don't see very many sort of builders that are 40, 50 that are still on the tools flipping and renovating unless they really, really love it, because they find other ways of actually creating that passive income, and it is quite a time and labour intensive job, and so I think it's great that you've seen that, you know that it can work, and that might be something you do at some point as well, but having you open your eyes to something else I think is really important, so that you go, there can be an easy way sometimes. Yeah.
Yes, one thing we teach a lot at Duval is about sacrificing those sort of things for the greater good for your long-term position and long-term wealth and gain, right? And also teaching a lot about, I agree, sometimes flipping is a good way to get a bigger deposit and that sort of thing, especially in the trades, because you've got that skill set too, right?
Totally.
So you can use that. So trading a property or two, but obviously over the long term making sure you're retaining for that capital gain and that growth over the long term.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's a time of life thing too. You guys are at the start of your journey. You can afford to have different strategies getting ahead, but eventually you're not looking for that wealth creation. You're looking to actually have a strategy that's about retaining that wealth, or maybe sort of multiplying it enough so that you've got a bit of a nest egg. And if you're always buying and selling and buying and selling, by the time you get to retirement, you've got nothing left to show for it. You've sold everything. And I think it's brilliant. You guys are right at the start, and you're exposed to all these different ideas and opportunities to get ahead, and you're doing it well before most people that even I deal with, and they're all sitting here going, man, I wish I did this like 5-10 years ago.
Yeah. And how old are you, Michaela?
I'm 24.
And you?
22.
28.
It's awesome to see people like you guys starting young, you know, and thinking about this now, and it's really something we'd like to inspire other people, I guess, in your age bracket to be thinking about.
I'm interested to know, did you guys ever think that it would be possible to do this in your 20s?
Thought it'd be a struggle, but maybe to the late 20s. I definitely think that it should be something that you're taught in school, because it's a life skill that you need to know, and once you leave school and get a job, you have all this money at your hands when you go into employment, and actually knowing what to do with your money and set you up from the start so you're prepared going in for the future.
Yeah, that's a good point. I definitely didn't think I'd be able to buy something in my 20s. It's always such like a long way off. It's only kind of more recently where we've looked at how it all works, and if I'm smart with my money, that I actually could do that, which is that's pretty cool.
I definitely think I could. and yeah, I mean, it was definitely an option, but I think I always stuck to what I thought I knew, which was funds. But of course, when you weigh it up against actually owning a property and what you can achieve through lending, and then, you know, maximising your profit value.
You've only really just been exposed to us because you haven't been with us for quite a year, so you got some stuff to learn. But because the thing is too, keeping in mind, if you're buying off the plan, and we've seen this recently with one of our projects, where if you bought a year ago, the price of those properties now, before the project is even built, we're selling them for $70,000, around that, more than we were selling them for, 12 months ago. And 12 months ago, there are people who put their deposits down for $65,000. They've put $65,000 down, and they've had 1 year. And in that 1 year, that $65,000 has more than doubled.
I can guarantee you my funds are nowhere near that.
So this is the key, right? And so there's a lot to learn around that. But also, I want to talk to you a little bit about what your actual plans are. What's your plan over the next sort of 5 years?
5 years, I'd want to have 2 properties. Just get the first one under my belt, watch it grow, and then from there use the equity in the property to get my next one, and then just start building.
Super cool.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to have as many as I could in the next 5 years. It is dependent on the visa process and how long that takes, but I definitely want to have at least one, potentially working towards the second.
I don't think I've really got any excuse as to why I couldn't have multiple. I mean, I make good money, I've got good money saved. There is no real cap, I don't think, on what I could achieve, and I just really need to
throw yourself into it.
Yeah, and go into it.
I totally agree with you guys. You don't actually really think that it's possible. And hearing you all say that you want to have maybe 1 or 2 in 5 years, I just, in my head, I'm going, I know you can do way better than that.
All right, well, thanks for joining us on the couch today. It's been really good to have you all along, and get back to work.
Ben basically sort of showed me how to do it and that I could already do it. So I used my Kiwi Saver and a bit of savings and a little bit of help from the parents to get into my first house.